Exciting news for Forrest Gump fans! Are you curious about what happens next in the life of the beloved character? Could Tom Hanks reprise his iconic role, or will a new star take the spotlight? With the long-awaited sequel finally getting the green light, what new adventures could Forrest Gump be up to? What changes might this new film bring compared to the original? And how will it address events from the past? Well, to know all about this, you have to stay tuned till the end. The much-anticipated sequel is officially moving forward, according to a report from Giant Freakin' Robot. This new film has been talked about since 2001, when Eric Roth wrote a screenplay based on Winston Groom's 1995 novel, Gump and Company. This novel continues the story of Forrest Gump, and it looks like the upcoming movie will draw from this source material. However, there's still some mystery surrounding the cast. Will Tom Hanks return as Forrest Gump? His involvement is not confirmed yet, and it's unclear how the sequel might change the story from the original film. Tom Hanks has been cautious about the idea of doing a sequel, and he hasn't made any official announcements about his participation. But recent reports suggest that if Hanks and director Robert Zemeckis finish their current project, they might jump right into making the new Forrest Gump film. Fans are buzzing with questions. What new adventures will Forrest face this time? Will the sequel stay true to the charm of the original, or will it bring something entirely fresh? And how will the changes from the book influence the new movie? Well, to know about this, you should firstly know about what is Gump and Company about. In the beloved film Forrest Gump, the story ends in the early 1980s with one of its most touching scenes. Forrest Gump discovers that Jenny is pregnant with his child, named Forrest Jr. This emotional moment culminates in Forrest agreeing to take his son to his first day of school, aiming to share the wisdom he has gained from his many adventures over the years. This final scene differs slightly from the novel, which did not include the poignant detail of Jenny's passing away. The sequel, Gump and Company, picks up in the middle of the 1980s, where Forrest and his friend, Lieutenant Dan, are facing new challenges. Their shrimping business, which had once been a great success, collapses under the pressures of the market. After their business failure, Forrest briefly joins the New Orleans Saints, but is cut from the team before he can make much of an impact. Determined to support his son and provide a better future, Forrest steps on a series of new adventures. In one of his more notorious mishaps, Forrest accidentally becomes involved in the creation of New Coke, which turns out to be a commercial disaster. Despite this setback, Forrest's journey continues as he returns to Washington, D.C. There, he reunites with Lieutenant Dan, who has become blind since their last meeting. To support his old friend, Forrest decides to re-enter the military. Unfortunately, this decision leads to further trouble, as Forrest is drawn into the Iran-Contra affair. He is wrongfully made a scapegoat for the scandal, resulting in his imprisonment, while the actual conspirators escape unscathed. The novel takes some bizarre turns from here. Forrest encounters the real Tom Hanks, who fails to impress him, and receives an eerie visit from Jenny's ghost. As Forrest navigates these unusual encounters, the focus shifts to a strained relationship with his teenage son, Forrest Jr., who has developed serious issues, including alcoholism, mirroring some of the struggles his mother faced. In a twist of fate, Forrest's relationship with his son eventually improves, thanks in part to Jenny's ghost giving her blessing for Forrest to marry Gretchen, a German woman he had met and fallen in love with during his travels abroad. This ending brings a meta touch to the narrative, as it circles back to the film that originally captured their extraordinary lives. This imaginative conclusion adds a layer of reflection and humor to Forrest's remarkable life story. Eric Roth had big plans for Forrest Gump 2, aiming to continue the charm of the original film while exploring more historical events. In his proposed sequel, Roth intended to keep the same engaging style that made the first movie a hit. Forrest would have been part of major events from the late 1980s and 1990s, just as he was in the first film. For example, Roth envisioned Forrest being present during the infamous 1994 car chase involving O.J. Simpson. In another memorable scene, Forrest would have danced with Princess Diana at a charity event, adding a touch of historical fantasy to the mix. However, the sequel was also set to delve into some darker and more complex themes. Many fans speculated that Jenny's death in the first film implied she had AIDS. The sequel would address this directly, revealing that Forrest's son, Forrest Jr., suffers from the same illness. This situation adds a new layer of difficulty for Forrest as he tries to support his son while navigating daily life, including taking Forrest Jr. to school in Florida. In addition to personal struggles, Forrest's adventures would have included more dramatic events. For instance, Forrest befriends a Native American woman who invites him to play bingo. Unfortunately, this seemingly harmless outing leads him to the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, which was tragically bombed in 1995. Roth had planned to use this event to highlight the emotional weight of the story. However, external factors greatly impacted the film's direction. The September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks were a significant turning point. Roth and Tom Hanks had completed their script just a day before the attacks, and the tragic events of 9/11 made them rethink their project. They felt that the sequel's planned focus on recent tragedies might be inappropriate and could come across as insensitive in light of the new monumental tragedy that had just occurred. Before the attacks, the sequel was set to climax with the Oklahoma City bombing, which was initially intended to be a central emotional point in the film. However, after 9/11, the team felt that portraying such events might seem disrespectful. Roth noted that the 1995 bombing seemed less significant compared to the horrors of September 11, making it harder to approach the subject matter without seeming to diminish the severity of either event. Ultimately, these factors led to the decision to scrap Forrest Gump 2. Hanks, Roth, and director Robert Zemeckis all agreed that the film would not hold the same meaning or impact in the post-9/11 world. They decided it was best to let the sequel go rather than risk making a film that might be viewed as insensitive or out of touch with the new realities facing America. Tom Hanks, who starred as Forrest Gump and was a key figure in the film's development, shared his thoughts on why the sequel never materialized. In a past interview, Hanks explained that they explored the idea of a sequel, but their efforts were short-lived. He described how the discussion about the sequel lasted only about 40 minutes before they decided to abandon the idea. Hanks emphasized that he never signs contracts that obligate him to make sequels. Instead, he prefers to take on such projects only if there is a clear reason and a strong creative vision. Hanks' reluctance was a significant factor in the film's collapse. He has always been cautious about doing sequels just for commercial reasons, preferring to focus on projects with a meaningful and compelling reason to exist. Interestingly, Winston Groom, the author of the original Forrest Gump novel and its sequel, Gump and Company, was open to the idea of a film adaptation based on his work. This indicates that there was support for the sequel from the source material's creator. Paramount Pictures, the studio behind the original film, also seemed interested in pursuing the sequel. Reports from 2007 suggested that the studio was actively exploring options for bringing this awaited movie to life. Despite these early steps, the combination of the film's heavy themes, Hanks' hesitations, and the broader cultural shifts of the early 2000s made it challenging to move forward with the project. As a result, Forrest Gump 2 remained a tantalizing possibility that ultimately never came to be. Fans of the original movie were left wondering what could have been, but the decision to halt the sequel was driven by a mix of creative, personal, and contextual factors that made it difficult to proceed. What are your views on this? Do let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button. For more such amazing videos, do subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.